Hey everybody, welcome to another time-lapse video showing the process of how I make comic pages and covers and all of that. This one is a special two-page spread coming at you from Spawn. You'll see me redrawing Spawny here a couple of times, trying to get just the right kind of figure to fly across these two pages. Of course, when the writer and co-creator is Todd McFarlane, you really want to try to be as dynamic and cool as humanly possible. So this starts off with mostly just a lot of studies of figuring out what I want Spawn to look like in this one spread. This was my first go, so that's why there's so many different versions. I wanted to find just like that perfect one to kind of introduce me drawing Spawn over the city. I believe I changed his posture here even another time. Instead of keeping that foot way out, I think I kind of choose for a more, what's the word? Not symbolic, but maybe with just him kind of crouched flying over the city. These are my rough pencils. It's just meant mostly for knocking in composition, getting the darks where I need them to be, making sure the image is going to make sense when I finally start doing, the inks and refining the image. Digitally, I love working digitally now because, as you can see, like on a two-page spread, if you mess up a leg, you can fix it. If you want to shrink your image and broaden the entire picture, you can do that too. I think I shrunk it earlier and then added more buildings, just to kind of fit him in there even more. When I first start drawing anything, I just kind of want to fill the page with the figure. But in this one, I wanted to include, I wanted to include all of those really cool images that we saw on that first two-page splash in Spawn #1, where it's him and the buildings and the bats. And that's really just what I'm trying to channel here, is just doing what I do, but very much wanting to keep that kind of excitement and drama that we all saw in those first Spawn issues. I think right here I'm going in on the inks on Spawn to kind of really make sure I'm going to have him solid and cool. And you see all these little bubbles that I drew everywhere. Those are going to be bats. And I included them as well, just, as it's part of that homage of that first spread. And this was, and what we're seeing here with you'll see the bats kind of dance around and hit different levels of finish, much like anything else. I drew them on another layer, and I wanted to experiment with them so I could play with their size and play with the composition of the page in general. When you're working on paper, you're really forced to work all of this out at the beginning. And I am typically an impatient artist, and I like to just dive in. Digital work helps me dive in because it's just easier to correct things. I took away the buildings and all of that because at this point, everything is kind of getting monotonous to my eye, and I wanted to really be able to focus on the other elements and get them all rendered up, ready to go, and then start dropping in those background elements. This is funny. I haven't gone back and looked at these pages in so long, and this is such a superhero, such a dark superhero page, and it makes me look back on the Spawn days with very fond memories. What you'll see at this point is a whole lot of me just working out city elements. I'm messing with whether I want brick walls in the background or concrete. What kind of windows do you want? Blinds in the back? Just little elements here and there. Those are the things you think of in the foreground parts of the buildings, but really for the rest of it, I'm just trying to work out lights and darks and compositions. I'm pushing and pulling. And when I say that, you'll see elements like around Spawn's face and around his right leg where the buildings kind of fade out. It's very much on purpose to help the main figure stand out. And right now, we're pretty much at the halfway point, I think, for the image at this point. And so now it just comes down to rendering. And I've said this in some of the other videos, you know, once you get the heavy lifting of the layouts and the composition done and the initial drawing, the rendering is the fun part. Finding out, you know, trying to figure out what kind of wings I want to give these bats. I don't want, you know, like right now I could see, you know, in the video that I'm working on these bats, and, you know, you want them to be cool and rendered, but then you don't want to take them away in such a different style that it detracts or distracts, you know, from the rest of the image. So it's all finding that right, you know, balance of what works and where you can lead the eye better. And spatter is always just, it's my favorite. It's my favorite form of rendering, especially for black and white images. I love going in with spatter and then cleaning it up. There was an older illustrator, a German illustrator named Edward Thuni. And by way of George Pratt, I learned about the spatter technique, and I will never let it go. And as I start to finish up the image here, you'll see like around the face and all of that, there's still, you know, there's the spatter and the kind of sculpting of the face and his body to really solidify him. And then I'll go back in and clean out things of the background and all of that. I hope you guys enjoy watching like me torment myself over this 2-page spread and trying to impress Todd and trying to impress every other Spawn fan. Because I had a blast, and so I figured if I had a blast, then everybody else might too. I think that's about it, guys. I want to thank you so much for being a patron, and I hope you're digging all of these exclusive voiceovers with the videos, and I hope that's all some good insight on what goes through my brain when I'm making these kinds of pages. You see at the last minute there, I think I even threw on, at the very last minute of any piece I do, whether it's a painting or a cover or anything, the last day, there's always extreme changes for some reason. Typically, people just finish up the last little bit. But for me, that's when I'm like, oh, it's done. But what if I threw, you know, a Zipatone over this and this and this? So a lot of times in these videos, you'll see kind of a massive change at the very end, because at the very end, that's just kind of, I tend to just go for it. But this, I dig. It's not perfect, but I dig the hell out of it. And it was definitely a blast to do, and especially at that time working on Spawn. Thanks, everybody. Talk again soon.